All right, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to begin by saying that our thoughts and our prayers are with the families of the victims, as well as the entire community, the neighbors, the loved ones, family and friends of the victims of this senseless, horrific tragedy that occurred on Saturday morning. Our investigators have been working around the clock since this incident to piece together the pieces and the complexities of an incident that occurred in which an individual murdered 3 people and wounded another one who is thankfully recovering. There's a tremendous amount of forensic evidence that our investigators and our forensics team are working through. It took many hours for them to recover that evidence, and the scene spanned multiple blocks. We are still evaluating evidence. We know that it's going to take us some time to continue to do that and to do it properly, as well as evaluating evidence from other sources in order to determine a possible motive behind the unspeakable actions of the suspect. The 56-year-old suspect, who we did identify yesterday, has had numerous encounters with law enforcement from multiple jurisdictions, covering a time frame of more than 30 years. Some of those encounters included incidents that involved our patrol officers, others involved incidents that involved our outreach team, and still others included incidents that involved our mobile crisis team. In just a few moments, Colonel Andre Davis, who is the Bureau Chief of our Criminal Investigations Bureau, will provide a timeline of events as we know them now, as well as some other details that we have not yet provided on this case. Before I turn things over to County Executive Olszewski and then Fire Chief Joanne Rund, and then finally by Colonel Davis, I just want to take a moment to recognize the courage that was displayed by our officers who responded to this complex and unfolding active incident that occurred on Saturday morning. I am extremely proud of these members of the Baltimore County Police Department, and I have no doubt that their decisive and heroic actions were what caused us from not having more loss of life and what ultimately brought this tragic incident to a close. I also want to thank the members of the Baltimore County Fire Department, as well as the 911 operators and the police and fire dispatchers for their professionalism, their endless support, and the critical roles that they held during this unfolding incident, as well as the work that they do every day. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to County Executive Olszewski.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Chief Rund and Chief Hyatt, to both you and your teams for the leadership and courage displayed these past few days. In a bit of irony, I was at Delaney Valley Gardens the day before this horrific incident, where we commemorated those officers and firefighters who bravely run into dangerous situations all the time and who made the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice to do that. And this was certainly a reminder of the brave men and women that we have in Baltimore County in both the police and fire services who are willing to do that. So thank you to both of you, Chief Hyatt and Chief Rund. I first want to extend my deepest and most heartfelt condolences to those who lost a loved one in this horrific incident. And I likewise want to extend my prayers for recovery and healing, both for the individual who was injured as well as the community who was devastated by this action. You know, we hope that we are able to trust our neighbors. We have a social compact, and that compact was broken, and my heart aches for the residents who were impacted by these actions. I do want to applaud Chief Hyatt again and her team for connecting our mobile crisis team with the community, where we are ensuring that any and all resources needed for our residents are being provided. This is certainly an incident that produces more questions and answers in this moment, and we know that this is an investigation that is complex and will take some time. However, I have every confidence that both Chiefs Hyatt and Rund, along with their leadership teams, their investigators, and their staff, are fully committed to a full and thorough investigation. and we certainly don't think that now is an appropriate time for speculation. But this is, I think it's worth noting, the second time standing here with Chief Hyatt in the wake of a mass shooting that we know has some nexus to a mental health component. Each of those situations were unique, but taken together, they have proven that we certainly need to take a more serious look at any gaps that may exist out there. And we know that we will learn more in the coming days and weeks, and we will continue to look at whether changes are needed, be they local, state, or even national. We look forward to a better understanding, as I know that all residents of Baltimore County and our surrounding region look forward to as well. In the meantime, I ask for patience as our very talented and capable investigators do their work, and I would ask that you would please join me in keeping the individuals, families, and communities impacted by this horrific incident in your prayer. With that, I will turn things over to Chief Rund.
Thank you, County Executive Olszewski. My name is Joanne Rund. I am the Fire Chief for Baltimore County. We were alerted on that horrible day of May 8th to 7500 block of Maury Avenue for a 2-alarm fire with multiple shootings. Our fire dispatch was at 6:41 a.m. The first alarm was dispatched at that fire at 6:41 a.m. with multiple calls and also reports of shots fired. The police arrived on scene first, and I would like to thank Chief Hyatt and her team for the wonderful job that they did in protecting our firefighters as they arrived. The first arriving truck and engine from Station 13 of Westview arrived at 6:50 a.m. Engine 13 and the truck found a house fully involved. They immediately called for a second alarm. At 7:06, our command confirmed that the townhouses were fully involved in fire, and at 7:14, they announced a collapse. At that point in time, we notified BG&E that we had a gas-fed fire. The command advised that we needed to establish a 100-foot perimeter around that area so our personnel would be safe, and pulled our firefighters out of the adjacent location. At 8:03, the house to the right of the origin of the house that started the fire collapsed. At 8:34, our hazmat crews were dispatched to arrive on location because of an active gas leak that was from the fire being put out from one of the gas leaks, or gas mains, excuse me. At 8:52, the buildings and the storm drains were confirmed that they were negative for a test of gas. At 9:04, the county building engineers arrived on location, and they started taking a look to see if it was safe to go in. At 9:33, Red Cross was requested for assistance. At 12:04, BG&E shut the gas off, and the fire was put under control shortly thereafter. Our personnel, both police and fire, dealt with a lot of fatalities and injuries that day. 5 civilians were injured or killed, including the shooter. When fire units pulled up, our firefighters found people on the streets. All were on the ground, were obviously injured. Fire and EMS began to immediately render care, all with the protection of our wonderful police officers around us. I am so proud of the fire and police departments in Baltimore County on that horrific day. At around 7:40, a 5th person was located inside the home to the left where the fire had started. Firefighters found this victim, who was dead at the scene, while doing a search to put out that last part of the fire. No firefighters were injured at this location. The fire department's heart, our sympathy, our prayers go out to the community and the citizens, along with the loved ones that lost someone that day.
Well, good afternoon. I am Colonel Andre Davis, Criminal Investigations. On Saturday, May 8th, police received multiple calls into the 911 center at 6:40 a.m. Witnesses reported hearing and feeling large explosions in the 7500 block of Murray Road. The first officer arrived on the scene at 6:44 a.m. As the first officer arrived on the scene, he encountered 56-year-old Everton Brown in the parking lot. The officer ordered Mr. Brown to drop his gun numerous times, and when Mr. Brown did not comply with the officer's orders, the officer then fired his service weapon at Mr. Brown. Additional officers arrived on the scene and provided backup. Four officers fired at Mr. Brown until they were able to safely take him into custody. The shooter was pronounced dead, and as he was being transported to the hospital. We believe that Mr. Brown entered his neighbor's home where he stabbed and shot Ismael Quintanilla. Mr. Brown then followed Sarah Allicott into the parking lot after he shot Sarah in her home as well. The neighbors came outside, and they too were shot, one fatally. Law enforcement officers has had numerous contacts with the shooter, and this includes our mobile crisis team. Between August of 2008 and April of 2021, there have been 3 peace orders filed by residents against the shooter surrounding his behavior. The shooter had 2 guns legally registered to him. One of the weapons was seized in 2010 by the Baltimore City Police Department. The other handgun remained in his possession, and that is the weapon believed to be used on Saturday's event. We continue to investigate this shooter's background and encounters with police. This is still a very active and ongoing investigation, and we will provide additional updates as information comes available. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll turn this back over to Chief Hyatt.
Happy to take some questions.
How is it possible for this individual to have so many contacts with police, and according to case search, he has been found guilty of improperly maybe carrying a handgun in a vehicle? How can he still have a weapon?
So as you can imagine, we have a lot of questions right now. This is a very extensive time frame. We're looking back for about 30 years of contact with this individual. There are a lot of incidents that we are looking back on. We are actually having a team scrub every single encounter that we have documented with this individual. As we begin to dig through this information and as we begin to come up with some theories on this, or look back to look forward, we will continue to put out information. We wanted to have this press conference today. We felt that it was critically important to be able to stand up here and tell you what we do know, tell you the timeline as it stands right now. But again, there is more work to be done ahead of us. We have days and weeks of work ahead of us to really look into this.
And you said the mobile crisis team has had contact with the individual?
Yes, they have.
Did they diagnose any kind of mental illness or et cetera? Was he on medication?
So our mobile crisis team doesn't per se diagnose people. We send them out to situations when people are in behavioral crisis. But they see multiple people over the course of the year. As you know, the county executive recently announced that we're going to be expanding that program. Part of what we're looking back on right now are every single encounter that mobile crisis, along with our patrol officers and our outreach team, had with this individual.
But based on your investigation so far, have you determined whether or not the individual suffered from some kind of mental illness?
You know, right now we don't have anything that is a diagnosis, but I think that all of us collectively, based on some of the behavior that we know this individual was engaged in the past, encounters he had with our police officers, comments that he made to our officers as well as neighbors, I certainly think that we can infer that he had some type of mental illness. As for what his specific diagnosis or diagnoses were, that I don't know right now.
Chief, along that thread, are you aware of any extreme risk protective orders enacted involving this
So right now, that's some of what we're looking back on. As you know, for ERPO, or Extreme Risk Protective Order, there are some very specific elements that have to be present for that. As of right now, we have not seen any, but part of what we're continuing to do as we take a look backwards is to see, and you know, when ERPO was enacted in 2018, so it's through, we've had 30-plus years of encounters with this individual. It's only been enacted, you know, over the last few years. I will tell you, you know, our department absolutely has embraced, you know, Red Flag, embraced ERPO. Since it was enacted, we've had over 200 encounters with individuals where ultimately firearms have been seized from their homes. But again, we're so preliminary in this investigation, but we will follow up with that. That is one of the things we're focused on.
And I may have missed the metric, how many interactions with the local crisis team have there been? Do you have that information?
I don't have the specific numbers, but I know that there have been multiple. Sure.
Multiple neighbors said that they believe that this could have been prevented and that they're upset that more wasn't done to address his mental health issues, saying they came to police and the homeowners association saying they knew something like this was going to happen and it was only a matter of time. Do you think there was something that could have been done to prevent this? And like the county executive alluded to, there are changes you guys are planning or hoping to make to prevent something like this from happening in the future?
So I'll say this, first of all, you know, this was a horrible, horrific incident, and we are committed to picking through every piece of evidence, every report, every encounter. But mental illness in itself is not a crime. And so part of what we're doing is looking through to see, you know, could there have been points of intervention, maybe not even just by police, but in general with this individual. But we don't know that right now, right? I mean, we are so preliminary in a very, very lengthy investigation that frankly, and the county executive, I think, said it best, really we're just asking for patience because we want to make sure we owe it to the victims and to their families to make sure that we do a very thorough investigation and that when we provide information to you, we're certain about the facts, and it's just going to take a little bit of time for us to do that.
Chief, what kind of explosive devices were found in this car?
They were incendiary devices. Without going into too much detail, I'd prefer not to do that right now because of where we are in the investigation. But we don't have information on how long they had been there. We just recovered them.
Could you at least describe how dangerous they were?
Absolutely. These devices absolutely had the capability to be utilized, and this individual had the ability to utilize them that day.
I mean,
Last
how
question. Do you believe that he used an explosive device in his home? Is that something that you're looking into to cause the fire?
So right now, our fire investigators are still continuing with their investigation. We will, again, put out more information on that as we are conclusive in terms of after we look through all the evidence.